computer. Okay, good.
There you go. I see
All
it.
right, we're recording. All right, fantastic. Well, thank you for being here, Yvonne. And we are going to start our presentation here. And this is week 3 of 508, MAE 508, Teaching Subject Matter with Technology. And tonight we'll be going over a few key things, a few key concepts for week 3. We're going to discuss a few things. We're going to discuss how to assess technological needs of learners, schools, districts, or institutions. And that's really important that you can do that, even if it's a rough estimate. We're going to go over Spectre, chapters 5 and 6, and the article that you read from Education Week about what it takes to move from passive to active technology use in the schools, in K-12 schools. The video on digital divide was pretty good. It was pretty basic. It didn't really go into some really deep core issues about digital divide or go into some standards or rules for digital divide, such as what do you do when most students have a computer at home and there's a handful of students, maybe 20 or so, that do not have computers at home. And so I'll just share my experience of what we've done in the past with our school is that we had approximately, we started with 20 computers. We had a school of 2,000 high school students, and we started with 20 computers that the students could check out for the entire year. We also sent them information home on how they could get free or low-cost internet access at their home.
Wow, they got to take it home? That's
They
so
got to take it home for the whole year.
Wow.
And then we also, those who were rural, that were not within the range of getting internet through Cox or Spectrum or whatever, we actually purchased these Wi-Fi devices that they could, it was a USB thing they put into their computer, and then they could access the Wi-Fi that way.
Wow.
And we did not, check, we did not have any personal check, or it wasn't based on income or anything like that. It was just if a student needed a computer, then they could check one out. Well, the first year we had 20. The second year we bumped it up to 200. And by the end of the second year, we realized for year 3, we would have to have about 300 computers available for checkout. And that's something you have to think about, but it was worth it because we didn't want to have a digital divide. What we did to the computers that was a really great idea, and the librarian told us this, we had little library, like the stickers that you put on library books.
Barcodes. Yeah, the barcodes.
We put that right on the computer. And
Yep.
that way, when they were checked in and out, they were checked in and out just like a book, and the librarian took care of the fine. And there was a certain fine if they did not bring it back. And if they didn't bring one back and they were fined, they had to actually see their counselor and figure out what happened to the computer before they checked out another one. So, but we only had like 2 students out of 2,000 that really had that problem. So it really wasn't a bad thing. And we found that by integrating this system, it really helped students. Another thing that happened was in our special education department, they decided to go ahead and do it universally. Every special education student was given a computer that they could take home and have everything on it that they needed, because it was really too hard for them to go from one Chromebook to the other. It was just kind of a management type of a thing. So they actually had a different type of computer. They had a PC laptops, and they were able to store what they did on that computer and keep it for actually the duration of the time they were in high school. And that worked really well. And that way we didn't have any digital divide. So I don't know if you want to share, Yvonne, what happens in your school, if you have devices for the students to check out, or how do you deal with the digital divide at your school?
Well, I had a quick question though. So did they have something like monitoring, like what they would go on as well? I feel like That would be a huge, oh no, they didn't.
No. So if a student said he needed a computer or she needed a computer, we just took their word for it. There was a form, though, that the parents had to sign.
Right.
And it was a financial responsibility form that if the student, damaged the computer, lost the computer, whatever, it had the fees right on the slip. They had to pay this amount if the computer was lost. If the keyboard was damaged, they had to pay this amount. If this monitor was broken, and we actually established that the second year, because the first year we didn't know. We didn't think anyone, would break just the keyboard or the monitor or whatever.
Yes.
So then we had to break this down into components and do that. So the parents did have to sign.
Right.
And also, if we did not get the computer back, or we did not get the fees from the damages by the time they graduated, we held back their actual report card until we got those things. And this is not something we did just for computers. We did that same thing for library books,
Right.
fees, all kinds of stuff.
So we do the same thing.
Yeah.
But no, I was actually wondering about like the things, like the websites and the things that they go on. Like, was that?
Okay, yeah. Well, this is the thing. In our form that we had, and I should share that form with you, but in the form it said that parents were responsible for what their children were on when they were at home. And also they were responsible for what they were on at school, but that at school they would be monitored, somewhat monitored by the teacher, but the teacher has no responsibility. And then the students had to sign a paper. It's like all this paperwork, but it was worth it, that they would not go in anything that was inappropriate. And if they did, we had like a 2-second rule. Like if you see something, 1, 2, get off of it, close your window, whatever. Right. And that happened once in a while. But the responsibility was with the teacher. And I think in one of my webinars or whatever, or my recordings, it was a discussion post. I posted how at the beginning of the school year, I put my teacher desk at the front. And then we had laptop computers, and I thought, wait a minute, my desk is in the wrong spot. I need to be in the back. So that when I'm sitting and doing whatever I'm doing, I can see all the monitors. And that's just, nowadays it's a no-brainer, but in the beginning days, that was a best practice that wasn't even recognized. So that was important.
So we do have, I think I've said this before, but we do have a computer on wheels, and we have enough laptops for each student, but they cannot check them out just because we're not sure if they're going to return them or not. And then if we need it for class, it needs to be accessible for us. As of right now, the students are doing Galileo testing. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all, but so our cow is what they call it, is being borrowed right now. So we haven't seen it for like about a week now. But, it's just, of course, to help the older grades for when they do their testing, and when they have to do standardized testing on computers now.
Right.
So, but with the digital divide, I mean, honestly, we live in a pretty high socioeconomic community. So mostly everybody has computers, but there are some that say, oh, I don't have a computer at home, or I'm not allowed to go on the computer, or this and this and that. So I kind of just leave it alone, because I know it's kind of like a touchy subject with students and parents, and I'm not about to be like, hey, why don't you have a computer, anything like that. So I don't know, I just feel like it's just a little, technology is expensive, and as of course so.
Yeah, it is. And even in an affluent community, and there was a time in my career I did work at a affluent school. It was a middle school, and there are some students that don't have the devices, and so we need to be mindful of that and have those devices available. So that's something you might want to recommend to the principal or whoever's in charge of technology. And that kind of leads into the first thing we're going to discuss is how in the world do you assess the technological needs of the learners in your school, in your district, or institutions. And one way that you can do that is there needs to be a lead person at every school. And I'm sure, Yvonne, at your school, there's a technology person, and it's sometimes they call it the IT person, but there's somebody who makes sure that all the computers in each cow are working properly and things like that. And that person should actually take the inventory of how many devices there are and things like that. As a teacher, you should be aware of what's available in your classroom and what's working and what's not working. Be sure you let the IT person know what is, what are the needs and what are the repair needs. Now, I also bring this up is the fact that just because you have a classroom set of cows, be thinking about the future needs of your classroom. And that's what I did. And I actually wrote a grant to get a new set of computers for my coding class because Chromebooks weren't going to cut it. They needed an actual PC or a Mac that they could actually put the coding programs and load these programs into it. And once you assess and find out why you need some things, then you can write grants and figure out why, how to get the funding. So that's really important. Any questions about how to assess the technological needs of learners?
No. I mean, I just, like you said, I do have my assistant principal is the one that we go to. He's our go-to. And it was so funny. So yesterday I had, there was a special spelling worksheet that I wanted to download for one of my students because we're trying to do like some type of intervention and things like that for that student. And so I thought I was so cool. That's how I opened it with the assistant principal. And he's like, yeah, and I know it's really hard for you, Yvonne, to be really cool. Like, yes. So I tried to be really cool. I tried to download this, worksheet, which I thought that I was downloading the worksheet, but it ended up being a different search engine. So it was supposed to be Google Chrome. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I was so upset. I'm just like, I can't figure it out. So he had to come this morning and fix it for me. And the students were like, yesterday at the end of the day, we have this thing called DriveLine and all the names pop. We use technology for everything, really.
It's great.
Thinking about it. And so like certain colors mean the students to go to certain areas, at the school to get picked up from at the end of the day. And so one student goes, you should ask Mr. So-and-so, about your computer because he helped my teacher last year. And I know that and I was just laughing because I'm like, how do they know he's the go-to? So it's so funny that the kids know so much already, and they're only 7 and 8 years old. So it's so funny.
I know, it is so funny. It's and it's so funny when some of them can actually help the teachers, like, oh, you need to project that on the projector? Well, why don't you plug this in or whatever, because they watch us do things.
Right. Or they help to substitute, when I'm not there.
Yeah. They're very good. They're really
very
good.
Very observant. Too observant, if you ask me.
Yeah. Okay, I think we've covered everything on this page here. We'll go over the key assignment a little bit later here. We're going to go over the key assignment next.
That's number 2, though, right? Key assignment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Key assignment 2.
And it said 1 on the previous slide, just so you know.
I think we were going to go over key assignment 1.
Oh, okay. But it says due February 4th.
Let me look at my schedule here and see which one's due on week 4. I believe it's... Yeah, we're going to talk about key assignment 2.
Okay.
Yeah, because didn't you already do key assignment 1?
Yes, we did.
Yes, okay.
Last Sunday. Yeah.
Okay, so this one, let me see, go to the next one here. We are reviewing key assignment number 2, and that's the research paper. Now, you didn't do this one yet, did you?
I did not.
Okay, good. This says, choose a topic from the 10 hottest topics in educational technology at that website. And actually, these come from a technology conference called the Future of Educational Technology. The conference happened October 19th of 2016, and I say that because the 10 hottest topics in educational technology change every year. And so this is a year or so old. So when you look through the list, you go, wait a minute, that's not pertinent anymore, and there's other things that are more pertinent, but it kind of gives you a feel for it.
Right.
And you're supposed to address the following questions. What is the technology and how does it work? And I think that's really good for teachers to know how the technology works, because you're going to have questions from your students. And even if you're not sure exactly how it works, you can always leave a little bit of mystery in that so that the students find out how the technology works. And I like to do, have them do a little research in that too. What are the pros and cons of this technology? What kinds of learners would benefit from this technology? And when I mean what kinds of learners, I mean what age group, what types of students, what kind of learners. There's visual learners, audio learners, tactile learners. You've gone through all that before. And can this technology be integrated into your work environment? Some can and some can't. And a lot of times in education, it's a matter of finances. Like, I would love to have 10 robots in my class to teach robotics, but I can't afford it. So what am I going to do, And what does research show about the benefits of using the technology? So those are really good, solid questions. And I'm going to go over some of the options that you have. And I think, let's see, Yvonne, have you picked one yet or no?
I opened up the window, but I have not picked one yet.
Okay, so I'm going to go over a few of these that are really interesting. The first one is virtual reality, and that's really big, and it's really big for companies when they do training. And just to let you know, my brother, he works at Target. And you think, well, why would they do virtual reality training? Well, he worked in the snack bar, and it was a great way for them to do virtual reality training. And he said it looked like he was at the Target snack bar. And they actually had a scenario where he was supposed to help customers and things like that. And I thought, wow, that is, it actually saves time and money in the long run, because he could just do this virtual reality thing and be trained. I've heard Starbucks has similar things like that. I know that airplane pilots have had virtual reality training for a long time, and one of the newest ones is in medical training that they have virtual reality. So that's really really a great field. It takes a lot to actually create a virtual reality environment. And one of my classes at San Diego State, we actually were able to go into a virtual reality San Diego State campus and actually simulate different things, and actually in the virtual reality area take films of what was going on so that you could use that clip or whatever for training. It's really blows your mind how this virtual reality has really gone, really gone wild. But anyway, I did have a class where I used Google Cardboard, and you'll want to click the link and see what Google Cardboard is. It's these glasses that you make out of cardboard. Yvonne, have you ever seen the Google Cardboard glasses?
No.
They're so cool. I could do a whole webinar just on Google Cardboard. But they put these things on, and then they actually put their phone right into the glasses. They put their cell phone into the glasses, and they get there's certain virtual reality videos that they can watch, and they put them into their glasses, and it looks like they're right there. And they can learn all kinds of things about different places in the world, different careers, all these kinds of things. So if you want to, if you want to go into that, that is so.
I'm like, it's so crazy how we have access at our fingertips all the time. So I'm looking it up.
This is so cool. And I do have a pair. I don't know where in the heck I put them, but I I used to have several pairs, and I sold
Wow.
them to my students.
And it's actually cardboard.
It's actually cardboard, and you put them together, and they work just, I think, just as well as the big expensive ones. The only thing is you don't have the sound. You know, you don't have the big booming sound. But that is so cool, and it's a really big a big thing in education these days. In
You
fact,
download like an app, I guess, for
yeah,
it.
there's certain kinds of videos that are done in virtual reality.
Wow.
And
This
yeah,
is
you know, I
so
should
cool.
actually talk about that next webinar because it's really, really cool.
I've never
Um,
heard of that.
yeah, it's really, really cool. And the next one is coding. Coding is was really, really big about 3 years ago because it was new, and teachers were like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to teach my kids how to code," and which is good. And I think that if you've ever heard of code.org, they have a day of coding. It's usually in December of each school year, and they have all kinds of things on code.org that help kids of all ages get into coding, which is really cool. I've really gotten into teaching coding to students, and I love it, and it's so engaging. So that's a really good thing to actually do your research on.
Okay.
3D printing, I'm not so into this, but I know a teacher that has a 3D printer. He used to be next door to me when I taught high school, and he did all kinds of things with 3D printing. It does take more than just 3D printer. You have to have a computer lab that can actually handle the design component of the 3D, and that's what's really cost prohibitive, is not the printer so much, is this software and the computers that have the power to do this. But it is interesting. Oh, and going back to 3D printing, there was a school that actually got into making 3D hands for a company that they did prosthetics. And they made over 100 designs for hands for this company, and the company actually used some of their 3D designs for their prosthetics. I thought that was very fascinating. Cybersecurity is big. If you have kids that are like junior high to high school, they have this cybersecurity club that they can then join through the Air Force. It sponsors the whole thing. It's fantastic. But if you do this, you really should look into the cybersecurity. It's called Cyber Patriots. In fact, I have their T-shirt on today. I don't know if you can see it, but it
Oh
says
yeah.
Cyber Patriots. I was the team captain for many years when I was in high school, and it's just a fascinating field for kids to know how to anti-hack. Yeah, they learn a little bit about how to hack, but they have to know how hackers think so they can prevent hackers from getting in. And all of the lessons and all of the curriculum is provided free from the Air Force, and I just love this program. Another one is inclusive learning technology, and this means that there are so many ways that you can include students who are blind or who are deaf or who have other learning disabilities, that you can include them in technologies. And I actually toured a classroom at San Diego State that specialized in that for college students, and it was amazing, all the technologies that they have there. I could go on screen readers and all different kinds of things. Wearables are really big. It mentions Fitbits, but there's also wearables that are decorative, that they have all kinds of things that light up. It's a fashion thing for girls in junior high and high school, that they program these lights and stuff that are hooked to their garments to make them look cool. But anyway,
And shoes too. There's
shoes, there's hats, there's necklaces, there are all kinds of things that they can program. If they just light up, it's like they're actually programming these things, which is cool.
Yeah.
Another thing, we only have 10 things to go over, so
Okay.
don't worry. Learning analytics. And this is the way to use a smart way to use data and harnessing the power of big data. At UCSD, used to live in San Diego by the University of California, San Diego, and they have there what's called a supercomputer center that actually harnesses big data. So instead of just taking small data sets, they take these huge data sets, and then they evaluate and analyze the data and come to extrapolate conclusions and things that normal people can't come to. Now, so I would say that unless you have access to a big data processor, it's hard. But you can research this topic and learn all the things that UCSD has learned through big data. Google Apps for Education, I think that's it's not such a hot topic. It's actually a regular topic now. I mean, most schools are using Google Apps for Education. I think that, Yvonne, your school probably is. If they use Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Drive, all of those things are just like the standard, becoming the standard now for education. Now, do you use Google Apps for Education at your school, Yvonne?
So you mean like Google Apps as in like Google Doc and all
Yeah,
that?
you use all those.
Oh my gosh. Like entirely way too much, I feel.
Okay, entirely. So you see, it used to be like maybe even 10, even maybe 8 years ago, or for some schools, maybe even 5 years ago, they were just starting to use Google Apps. And before then, they were using Microsoft Word and Excel and PowerPoint and all of those things.
It's so helpful, just like share, like we do our lesson plans all on Google Docs. And like, it's just so awesome because everybody can access it. You can revise, edit, whatever. And it's like the last edit was by so-and-so. And it's so great. I love it.
And companies are using it too, which is really amazing. Even at the university level, I write some curriculum for the university. And when I write it, it's a shared doc, and my curriculum director can see exactly what I'm doing and can make suggestions and comments right live, which is fantastic,
Right.
So it's becoming not only a standard in education, but in the business world as well. So that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the maker movement. I don't know if you've heard about the maker movement, but there was a big funding about 3 years ago for Make It projects. And what it was is it's in libraries, they used to have these centers where kids could go and fiddle around with electronics, or they could fiddle around with different computer devices, or even they could fiddle around with things, invent things that actually move and things like that. So it was a hands-on approach for making things. And the last time I tried to get funding for Make It project for a library, I did not get the funding, and they were funding very few compared to what they were like even say 3 years ago. So that movement's kind of dissipating due to funding. Gamification has always been big about how you make games, how you have students learn through games and things. And one thing you can do as a teacher, if you teach coding and how to program, you can teach the kids how to make educational games. And you'd be surprised at what they come up with. It also says that they have the Minecraft Education Edition. I never got into that, but I usually made the kids make their own games, educational games, so that they could learn how to make them, and they would pick the topics that they wanted to make games out of. So that's that. So Yvonne, you've probably seen a topic or two, and the other students who are viewing, you probably see a topic or two that you like, and go ahead and go with it. And you have from now you have about a week and a half. Let's see, you have till February 4th. I'm looking at my calendar here. So you have a week and a half to actually do a research on one of these hot technology topics. Any questions about those?
Not at all. I like that you go over it. That's really nice.
Yeah, because I've kind of, had a little exposure with all of those things, and to kind of tell you how I've put that into my classroom has been really, really fun. Now we're going to go to the reading in the course textbook, and this week we were supposed to read chapter 5 from Spector. The topic was technology support for learning, instruction, and performance. And if you notice those 3 key words, learning, instruction, and performance, those are themes of this textbook here. And I wanted to go over a couple things that really stood out to me. I always like these quotes at the top, and I'm on page 43 now. The quote at the top says, technology should not support learning by attempting to instruct the learners, but rather should be used as knowledge construction tools that the students learn with, not from. So technology is not something that you're going to teach them technology. Like they used to have technology classes, but actually technology is a tool for all subject areas. And technology is a tool that students learn with, not from. I thought that was very good. Back in the day, I don't know if you remember this, but they used to actually have keyboarding classes and word processing classes and things like that. But now it's integrated. So
I love those typing classes. They're my favorite.
yeah, remember typing to the music?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We used to have contests. Me and my best friend were like, how many words did you do per minute?
Oh, I know.
Now it's so much more.
I know. Well, you should have seen it when I took typing back in I hate to say it, in the 70s in junior high, but we didn't have electric typewriters. We had the kind you push, and my typing teacher would play songs that had rhythms. So we had to keep to the beat, F, D, S, A, and it was something. And then we started words, T, H, E, space, da, 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 space. And we'd all, until we got a little bit faster, it was something else. But anyway.
So funny. I love it.
I know. I'm on page 45, and I wanted to point out how overwhelming table 5.1 was. It has the role of the individual, and then it has the activities of that person. And when I read this, I thought, schools do not have the luxury of having a teacher, an instructional designer, a training manager, a media specialist,
Right.
and a technology specialist, and on and on. And I went over there and I went, oh my goodness, teachers do most all of this themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You're the evaluator. A lot of times you're the equipment specialist when the IT person can't come and help you. And so don't feel overwhelmed, but there are big companies that have these kind of people. And I know people who are, like maybe they are, I know this one guy, he was the media specialist for a chain of hotels. And so he was the one who, if they needed to play a movie or something was going on with training and he needed to be there, he was the media specialist. Now, the good thing about being a teacher is you kind of learn a little bit about everything. And so, we also have the internet now to kind of Google things when you get stuck. Mm-hmm. So I would say to you as a teacher, good luck with all of this, but and don't feel overwhelmed. You just do what you can, and in addition to that, have a backup plan. I would always have about 2 or 3 backup lessons on paper and pencil that kids could do if the technology was down, the internet was down, whatever. Yeah. And that was not even listed here about supports of learning, but a support of learning is having that backup. Then on the following page, page 46, has instructional activities and representative technologies. I would have, in fact, I have in the past, put this type of information in a spreadsheet. And the reason why is because then if you have something that you want to do a certain lesson and you think, what kind of technologies can I use with that? You can actually go down and look in your spreadsheet and see what there is. Our district, when I worked in the K-8 arena, we actually had a district spreadsheet where teachers who were into technology added to this, and that might be something you might think about with your grade level teachers, is what programs, what apps work for certain subject areas and certain topics.
Mm-hmm.
And then you share all that, of course, on a Google Sheet or a Google Doc, and you can update that and actually share best practices, which is really, really good. They're talking about some programs here that we would never be able to afford as teachers, such as Dreamweaver and Flash and Camtasia, all these kind of things. So I would suggest making your own table for those types of things. Then skipping over to, I don't want to go too far into this, but skipping over to chapter 6, integrative approach to planning and implementation. The little quote there, which I love, says, it starts out with the procedure of working backwards. Now we've heard that before, working backwards from goals to the required instructional events is one of the most effective and widely employed techniques. I can't overemphasize that enough, is that you've got to start with the end in mind. And one of the courses I teach, is not this one, but another one that I teach, we actually go over, it's one of my teacher education classes that I teach. We go over what is the end result you want the students to know. And then from there, we go step-by-step backwards planning and so on and so forth. But it's so important when you're using technology as well to know, well, your goal is not to have them know how to use the weather app. No, the end goal might be for them to be able to take a table of data and extrapolate what the weather might be in the next month or whatever. So you need to have that perspective in mind. And then another thing about integrating technology while you teach, you would need to integrate technology into your planning while you teach, is that brainstorm, be creative. Don't be afraid to say, hey, I can try this. You might be the first teacher who tries something with iPods or with the camera. I know, I think at your school, Yvonne, you turned the camera off, but I once did a stop motion science experiment, and the kids used the camera on the computer, and I could believe what fantastic results they got out of that. But a lot of these ideas you think up in your head, and they're not in any workbook or whatever. So that's why it's good to share and collaborate with your colleagues for integrating. There was one more thing I wanted to note in chapter 6. Get it really quick here. Where was it? I usually highlight my book, but this book, they check this book out to teachers from the USU library. I've been afraid to put any marks in it. But anyway, I usually mark up a book really. We were talking about educational systems and blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. I can't even remember where. I'll remember it right after our webinar is done. But actually, they were talking about systems and education and things like that. Oh, I remember what it was. I was thinking about how when I taught middle school. Now, you teach 7th grade, did you say, or 7-year-olds?
6. Oh, sorry.
What grade do you
Second
teach?
Grade. Second
Oh,
grade.
Second grade. I was thinking about junior high when we did. It was the very beginning stages of iCalendar, and we would actually put on our iCalendar when the different teachers had tests. And we had planned this so the students on our team, and our team had a math teacher, English teacher, science teacher, and history teacher, I can't remember. We wouldn't plan all of our tests on the same day. And that was a really good idea, and it was really difficult for us to do back there. It was about 10 years ago when iCal first came out, and you had to actually copy a code and put it on somebody else's computer so that they had a shared calendar with all 4 team teachers. And I always thought of how that was really a good way to go. And after it got simpler to do that, I think the teachers on our team decided, oh, this is getting too complicated or whatever. But it is good to consider what other assignments and commitments students have when you're planning, and to use technology tools as a teacher to help simplify, what you're going to do as well. So that's what I wanted to say about systems and whatever. Okay, so let me unshare this here. Stop the share. And see if we have any further questions about anything we've gone over with this. I've talked 45 minutes. I can't believe it. But anyway, this is a good, there it is. I can see it. I can end the meeting here. Did you have any questions about what we've gone over or anything in the book, or especially the key assignment 2?
No, I think you did a wonderful explanation of it. So like you just said, well, just out of all of those, so like 1 through 10, just pick one that we really are interested in, research it, and then just answer those questions. And I think it's like a 5 to 7 paper is what I saw. And of course APA, and then that's all I need to know.
Good. That's fantastic. And like, if you have any questions or you want to send me your paper before you submit it, I can look at it and make suggestions, whatever you'd like. I'm willing to do that. Now, next week we will not have a webinar, and that's to give you extra time to finish your key assignment.
Okay.
So that's the scoop on that. Okay, well, if you don't have any other questions, I think that's it. And thank you so much for listening. And I will talk to you in 2 weeks from now. But like I said, you can contact me at any time.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you
so much. Okay, bye-bye now.
Bye.